Yep. Still working.
Hi everyone. While they're sorting out the tech issues, IOT Scotland, 29th of September is being held at Dynamic Earth. It's Scotland's national IoT for business conference. So if you have any interest in that particular area and how it fits business as an application, as a tool, we've got Uber, Boeing, First Group, IoT UK, and a Sensit speakers and exhibitors, sponsors, who, including Simon, is going to be there with Tuzi. So go to iotscotland.com. It's free to attend. We'd love to see you there. It's a full day conference, so if you're interested in it from the business side, do sign up. Thank you.
Excellent. James, where are you? James, you're difficult to spot. Oh, there you are.
I'll go in front. I won't bother standing on the stage because I'm tall enough. Well, hi, my name's James. I'm the CEO of the Startup Race. It's an Edinburgh initiative. What we're trying to do is to encourage entrepreneurs to build, measure, learn more quickly by incentivizing each other with a little bit of a competition. And I'm looking for some coders who are passionate about the lean startup methodology of build, measure, learn. I think that too many entrepreneurs in Scotland around the world make the same mistakes. They take too long to validate their hypothesis. So if you read the lean startup, if you can write code, please drop me an email. My email is james@thestartuprace.com. Maybe just grab me tonight. I should also say I'm a director with a homeless charity myself. I've been director now for 9 years with Hope Worldwide UK. We primarily help homeless people in London, so I'm very interested in the difference that you guys can make tonight with the hackathon. So good luck everybody, and please work hard. Thank you.
Thanks, James. So, my name's Simon Montford, and I host monthly Internet of Things meetups, and we cover lots of different topics: smart city, drones. We've done autonomous transport. We've got artificial intelligence, IoT and the blockchain, crowdfunding, so connected products. As long as it's related to the Internet of Things in some respect, then we'll cover it. And I just like doing sort of themed events, just because I do. So that's why I tend to pick a theme. And the reason why Alan, who is the founder of Product Forge, and I came together was because our events were planned at more or less the same sort of time of the month. Generally, it's the last Thursday or Friday of each month. And the theme that I was putting together was smart city, smart building, and so this kind of the topic of using smart buildings to make social housing more efficient dovetailed quite nicely into what's taking place in this building today with shelter in terms of homelessness, and we just thought we'd come together to co-host this event, and using technology, specifically connected devices and sensors, to solve some way of homelessness and providing shelter for those in need. So we've got an interesting lineup of speakers for this evening, and then some drinks and networking. Alan will talk to you a little bit more about hackathon specifically, and then the hackathon will commence at around 9ish, I think. So the attendees of the meetup will remain here, like I said, to continue just chatting over a drink, and I think the hackathon contestants will peel off and perhaps go next door, but like I said, Alan will talk more about that. So, Alan, would you like to have a word, or would you like Conrad to have a word?
Get Conrad up first.
Is really the sponsor of this evening. He works. Are you the in charge of digital at Shelter?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I'll hand you over to Conrad to say a few words, and then we'll move over to our next speaker.
So basically, I'm just going to be a bit of filler before Alan comes. He's got his thumbs up. So yeah, hi everybody. So my name is Conrad, and I look after Shelter Scotland's digital. So this hackathon really came about because we really thought that sometimes when you work for a charity, you can get really bogged down and continually work on the same thing day in and day out. Obviously, it's a really, really important thing. We're trying to solve homelessness after all. I was really aware that we didn't really ever take the time to kind of ask you guys what you thought we should be doing, and what you thought, what kind of products or services you guys can put together or brainstorm with us, so that we can, solve this issue of bad housing in Scotland and homelessness. So anyway, that's how this weekend came about. So I think we've got around 30 or so. If you're a participant at the hackathon, do you want to raise your hand? So yeah, an amazing amount, a great amount of people here, and obviously thank you so much for coming along. So we'll be, working together over the weekend just to kind of see if we can come up with some innovative solutions to look at how we can, make life better for renters, homeowners, people who are in social housing, and landlords in Scotland. So obviously you guys are all on Twitter, of course you are. Our Twitter wall isn't working at the moment for some reason, but I was going to refer to it. I'm going to refer to our fictional Twitter wall around the back. So can you grab your phone, not right now, but if you can right now, of course as well, but during the next hour or so, and just tweet us and the participants using the, what's the hashtag on? Shelter Scott PF hashtag. It's everywhere. And I want to know, what does home mean to you? So it could be a few words. Just, if you think about home, if you think about your own home, if you think about if you're not living in Scotland permanently, if you're living elsewhere, what does home mean to you? I think it'll really help the participants and us just to kind of, help us frame kind of what we're going to be doing over the weekend. Yeah, that's all from me. Al? Cheers. Thank you so much for coming.
And I have literally no idea what I'm going to say until I say it, probably. So thank you all very much for coming along. This is the first hackathon actually we've run this year. The last was Product Forge 4 on the theme of digital participation, and as part of that event we looked at housing and homelessness, and Shelter kindly sponsored part of that event, and the winning team went on to work on a project on that topic, and there was a huge amount of interest in it, and we thought, leading on from that, it would be absolutely amazing to do something just specifically on this topic. So thank you very much for coming along. For those of you who are joining us as part of the hackathon, you're going to be watching some talks to give you some inspiration. We'll be doing some speed networking later. You'll hear from service users from Shelter, from people who are working within the organization. We'll be doing some team formation, and we're going to be getting you all set up so you can be hacking over the weekend. The venue's going to be open 24 hours. You can stay as late as you want. You can leave as early as you want. It's up to you. And we're really looking forward to seeing what the outcomes are going to be on Sunday. If you've got any questions, just approach me or one of the team. So we're all wearing Product Forge t-shirts, so put your hand up if you're Team Product Forge, and Team Shelter as well. Put your hands up if you're a mentor in the room. So approach any of these guys if you've got any questions, and enjoy the rest of the show, and you'll hear a lot more from me a bit later on. Cheers.
Thanks, Alan. Round of applause. Excellent. I'm sure it's going to be a really fun evening. Well, weekend, actually. Are you guys going to be sleeping or not? Sleeping allowed, or you got to work the whole way through? I guess you'll get briefed on that later. Okay, we have another speaker from Shelter, Adam. Are you ready? Adam Lang. Thank you.
We don't have a clicker, but if you do, just do the right button.
Sure. No clicker. Nobody brought a clicker. Hackathon. Hello, my name is Adam Lang. I'm the Head of Communications and Policy at Shelter Scotland, which I suppose broadly means that all the fantastic work that my colleagues in the digital team, of which Conrad leads, I get to have some modicum of saying, that was all part of my plan. I did that. I'm really, genuinely, really excited to be here. Most of the conferences and events that I attend are not this interesting, to say the least. So I'm really chuffed to be here. Thank you for inviting me along. There is throughout the room here, and I believe throughout the weekend, there's an abundance of sort of statistical information about the challenge and the scale of the problem of homelessness and bad housing in Scotland. So I've tried to gear my presentation, and I do tend to ramble a bit, so just throw things at me, away from the stuff that's already here, to give you a bit of an oversight about Shelter Scotland and how we perceive our take on some of the harder stats that are scattered around the room here. Oh, good start. Very briefly then, just a very quick bit of context setting in terms of who we are. We've been around since 1968. Our sort of sister organisation, Shelter, was formed in 1966 in England. Shelter Scotland specifically and distinctly was set up in 1968 because there's a whole lot of differences both in the legislation and in the local challenges about the housing market in Scotland as compared to England. The quote that's up there is taken from our original legal founding principles, our charitable objectives, and I put them up deliberately because I think they're amazing, and I think more people should write like that generally. But we were created to play a creative part in the life of the nation by relieving human suffering, irrespective of colour, creed or class, and to relieve hardship and distress among homeless people and among those in need living in adverse housing conditions. I think that is a fantastic mission statement for any organisation, and it's one that I'm incredibly proud to work for and towards at Shelter Scotland. Thank you. I didn't write it. I wish I did write it. I didn't write that. A lot of people don't necessarily understand the way Shelter Scotland's structured or what we do. We do this sort of tracking thing annually about what people believe we do, and 90% of people we survey think that we run soup kitchens or do actually build or provide sheltered housing. We actually do neither of those things. We provide fantastic frontline services and support and advice for people who are homeless or badly housed. And the way we conceptualise that is helping people here today in housing need. And the other side of what we do, the bit that I'm responsible for, is we campaign for change so that the problems people face today are improved tomorrow. And I'll go on just to sort of explain a little bit about that. But it isn't actually what a lot of people think that we do. And we have lots of internal discussions about how far we should go in correcting those perceptions. We're broadly split into three core functions. We have a services division. Some of my colleagues from services are here. They do incredible work dealing every day with people who are at the very sharp end of Scotland's housing crisis. And I couldn't encourage you enough to speak to them and to hear the testaments and stories that they have about how completely crap it is for people who are suffering from our housing crisis. And don't ever let anyone tell you that it isn't a housing crisis. Mostly politicians will try and tell you that it isn't a housing crisis. Go and sit on our helpline for half an hour, or go and hang out with any of our service advisors. You will be left in no shadow of a doubt that it is a housing crisis. So we're split into services, communications and policy, which I can talk to here today, which is broadly comprised of the components you see below there. With the digital team, I would draw particular attention to. Most of my colleagues from the digital team are here today, Conrad, Keith, Tom and James. Campaigns and public affairs, which is where we turn all the information we gather from our digital resources, from our colleagues in services, from our policy insight into things to try and drive change. And we have another bit about various projects that we run at times. We also have a training arm within Shelter Scotland, which is relatively new, about trying to improve practice for practitioners and local authorities and other service providers. Just very briefly, we enjoy a really positive public profile. It's something that's very important to us, that we work very hard to maintain our trust, to maintain our standing. We are a charity. We rely on the kindness and goodwill of others to support what we do, donations from on the street, from a whole variety of other ways. So it's very important to us that we always monitor and track how well people perceive us to be doing our job. Our impact from our services side of our organisation, and this is where the stats you see around the room about the statistical situation nationally in Scotland translates into what we see on a daily basis, and these are the stats from the last year, roughly. A couple of them are wrong, which I'm sure I'll hear about later. We dealt with about 17,000 cases last year. That's people who came to our services, 17,000 cases. We don't identify them as 17,000 individuals because sometimes somebody might come once and come back, of which 12,000 came through our free national helpline. We offer that as a universal service to anyone in Scotland. If you're at a point of crisis or if you need support, our free national helpline is available to you. 46% of the calls to that helpline came from people in the private rented sector. I think that's a very important point to make, because only 14% of all households in Scotland live in the private rented sector, so it is vastly disproportionate in terms of how we hear about problems from that part of Scotland's tenancy mix. Some of the other problems we deal with from the non-helpline side, which is where our casework kicks in, and some of the more intense and time intensive cases around evictions, possessions, homelessness, debt, and struggling with household costs. Things, hopefully, that should be make sense, and there should be a logic to that. We also recently, about 18 months ago, set up what was for us at the time a very innovative form of support, which is our online chat. It's a pop-up live chat support that if you're on our website, you'll be prompted to engage with. We delivered 4,000 live chats sessions last year, and the really fantastic thing for us about that is it delivered by volunteers. And with, not that everything's about money, but what that means for us is it's an incredibly cost-effective way for us to help more people, and that's ultimately what it's all about for us. So from a communications and policy point of view, what's our impact? Because that's the other big pillar of what we do. We have about 10,000, just under 10,000 registered campaign supporters who have given us their information and support what we do. Last year we produced, researched, published and uploaded 41 policy documents or policy papers to our digital policy library. We also do the more mundane stuff of physically distributing that to key audiences and so on. We had a direct influence on 4, in particular, major bits of legislation that went through the Scottish Parliament last year. On land reform, on the lobbying bill in Scotland, on the community justice bill. We got huge amends to that bill to put housing at the heart of when people who have come out of the community justice system and they don't have a home to go to. There's now going to be significant improvements put in place to ensure those people have a home. And most significantly of all those bills is the tenancy reform bill, and I won't go into how phenomenal that is, but it's a really big deal. Basically, if you live in the private rented sector from April next year, you'll be able to stay there as long as you want. It will be more of a home for you. You won't be able to be arbitrarily evicted unless you break some pretty obvious rules, which would make sense for you to be evicted if you were breaking them. But it brings us more in line with a lot of European countries and is a major step forward. More specifically about our digital function and the digital challenge that we have, which I thought would be interesting or appropriate for this audience, is our digital vision statement, which you could probably boil down to will help more people, and you could just put a full stop there, but it's a bit longer than that because we're a charity, and why use 5 words when you could use 100? But it really has contributed to why we're here today, that statement. We want to innovate, we want to stay ahead of the curve. We think we've got a great track record, we want to be better, we want to be as good as we possibly can be, and we know that we're never going to have all the answers. We want to hear from other people and get other people's perspectives. Some of what we do digitally, hard to display in a static slide, but I'll give it a go, and because I'm not clever enough to do it in a non-static slide. But basically, everything that we produce, as far as possible, that we do physically or we do in a more traditional sense in terms of policy or statistical analysis, we try and replicate digitally to make it as accessible as possible and to broaden our ability to have more impact. That's campaigns, the Make Renting Right campaign you can see up the top, snapshots of our social media feeds. We're trying to keep ahead of the curve on how we design functionality of our web pages and this look and feel of our web pages to make it as easy as possible for people to engage with the content that we put a lot of time and effort into making. Hopefully you get a sense. Animations is something, that we've recently started trying to do a bit more of. Housing is an unbelievably complex field in terms of rights, responsibilities, all the issues that go with it, and we've found animation's a good way of trying to make very complex things a bit easier to engage with. Some of the key digital statistics. Last year, 834,000 unique visitors to our Get Advice pages. So Shelter Scotland, the website, has a core element called Get Advice. So a huge number of unique visitors to that page, something we're incredibly proud of, and Conrad's team have put a huge amount of effort in the last 5-6 years into making that content as engaging and as easy to sort of follow and read through as possible. Our social media channels, I think, are some of the strongest for any charity in Scotland. Keith, who's here in particular, puts a huge amount of his time into ensuring that our content's kept, hopefully, quite engaging. I think it is. I'm pretty biased. We also do an enormous amount of analysis about the trends that underlie traffic to our website, what pages people engage with most. And one of the things we pulled out for this is just we're very aware of the split in terms of access to our pages and where people are coming from, what type of devices they're using, and they need to be responsive in their design. And I think it would be fair to say that both in the public sector and the third sector, a lot of charities and information providers have really lagged behind in terms of keeping their content in as engaging a format as it can be. I wanted to just very briefly throw this up, and I was desperately looking through it earlier to try and make sure I wasn't revealing anything that we shouldn't really be in the public domain. I probably haven't done that very well, but never mind. This is just to say we take quite seriously and quite a sophisticated approach to trying to plan out the proactive digital work plans that we do, and I thought that was just something worth mentioning in front of this group, because anything that may come out of this might have a relevance in terms of what we take forward, and we do take quite a serious approach to trying to manage our capacity. And this similarly just reflects that we have, we're very aware of our function in terms of a sort of a promotional platform with that level of engagement and how we coordinate that with our other communications work. I mentioned our Get Advice pages. This is primarily here how our Get Advice pages are currently structured, or a significant chunk of them are currently structured. We think the content is fantastic in terms of the detail and the factual information, and we have very positive feedback. We get about 5,000 elements of feedback annually, or at least we did last year. I don't know if it's annually exactly. Generally, it's very positive, but we are aware that it's not the most exciting way of laying out information and sort of helping people help themselves. So we've recently moved some of our content into topic hubs, as we call them, or I say we. I genuinely wouldn't have a clue how to even start doing that. But Conrad and his team have sort of, in recent months, moved sort of our thematic content into different sections, more structured around the guide format that you see there. I share all that not to go off on an endless tangent about what we're doing, but to try and give you a sense of where we currently are with some of our digital content. We like to think that we have learnt a lot of lessons. I know that we've got a great team who are well tapped into the digital world in Scotland and beyond, and we're trying to sort of make sure that we are staying ahead of the curve. But as I say, we recognise there's a very, very long way for us to always keep going. Before I go on to questions, just as a quick run through of who we are, where we are, that's a huge amount of information. It's all kind of old hat to me because I talk about it all the time. I recognise there's probably lots of things that aren't implied in there or aren't as obvious to others. I would reflect on just one or two very quick things, though, about that presentation. Across all that we do on the services side of our functionality and on the campaigns and communications side, data is the biggest problem we have. Not our data necessarily, national data in Scotland about that is in any way consistent across the 32 local authorities or at a national level. There's some key elements. There's things like quarterly homelessness statistics, there's annual publications on house building and so on, and there's some of those are represented in the stats you'll see around the room. But when you want to really help people, you need much more consistent, much more depth of local data about trends in, well, for example, there is no national or formal count on rough sleeping in Scotland. And now I'm not saying that that's where we would necessarily say you would best spend your time, effort and energy, but it's an example of big gaps in data and some of the key issues that we engage with. There's a shocking lack of consistency across local authority data in terms of the way they capture who private landlords are, how many of them are registered, how many of them aren't. Resource is a big issue, and I think one of the things that if I could put one, I don't know, beg, I suppose, to anyone, if anyone's got any interesting ideas on how we could be better or smarter at mapping data or mapping trends in some of these quite complex areas, I would be thrilled to hear anything, any insight anyone could offer on that, because we have the ability to interpret it, we have the ability to analyse it and to build on our 50 years of experience to try and understand what it tells us. What we miss so often is just the data sets to tell us what's going on the ground. So, with that, I will throw it out for any questions at all that I can shed any light on, perhaps, or not. Excellent. Oh.
Should we get a mic? Is there?
I can probably show it for you.
Because we've got a live stream as well, so we do need audio.
I saw that data acquisition thing on the slides very early on. What exactly do you mean by data acquisition? Who from, and how are you handling opt-in?
I can talk about the handling opt-in.
Yeah, sorry, in relation to what particularly, sorry?
Well, Data Protection Act, the European data regulations that came out in 2018. How are you handling asking people whether they want to give you their
Yeah.
data, which is the first principle of data protection?
Yeah, I can talk very briefly about it, and Conrad can give you the expertise on it. It's something we have to take incredibly seriously because we're regulated as a charity by both Oscar in Scotland, by the UK body, and by European Union regulations as well. And in addition, because we're a charity that fundraises, we always try and maximise the income we can generate from supporters who might not initially be signing up to donate. They might be signing up to back a campaign or something like that. So it's something we have to take very seriously and put quite a lot of thought, time and effort into how we build that into all of our digital work and all of our campaigning work. When we capture somebody's details or their postcode or their email address, I'm going to probably get this totally wrong, but we do have all the tick boxes, and there is quite a lot of opt-in stuff.
I think you pretty much covered it. Just to say that with regards to data security, we take that really, really seriously, and one of the big projects that we're working on right now is to change everything we do and go over to SSL for everything. So that's one of the things, double opt-ins for newsletters and so on, easy unsubscribes, anything that you can think of, we are on it. I think if some of you know James Baster, he's here. He's our data security guru in terms of the Scotland representative on the whole of Shelter's board. So yeah, we take it. Malware every day. We have malware attacks, ransomware attacks, and all that sort of thing. We have a whole team looking after data and data security. So you could be assured that we're on it.
So guys, well, we need to keep the Q&A fairly brief because we've got two other speakers, and what I like doing at the end is a panel audience Q&A with the two other speakers, and I hope you're going to join that, Adam, as well. So we'll put the seats on the stage, and then we'll get all the speakers doing an additional Q&A. So I think a couple more questions. Sure. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Pass to that. There you go. Well done.
For me?
Yes, you.
As an erstwhile security specialist, I'm going to ask a question that's nothing to do with security. Presumably the people involved that you're certainly one category of people that you're attempting to reach with your digital sort of, delivery mechanisms are people that are not only suffering from exclusion in all sorts of variety of social circumstances, but also digital exclusion. Do you take that into account in the design of the bandwidth demand and the endpoint resource demand of how rich the content that you deliver is?
I think again I can answer part of that, and I'll refer to Conrad as a specialist to answer the rest of it.
I thought you were going to sort of crowd surf.
What I would say, and I have to caveat it by saying I'll defer to the expert, but I would say that I am acutely aware about the digital divide issue. It's something I've worked on in other jobs quite a lot in my career. It's a massive problem for a country like Scotland, which has a relatively small population dispersed over a much larger geography, and some of it has really patchy provision of some real basics in terms of broadband connection or Wi-Fi and so on. We do try and factor it in. We try and do everything that we do from a campaigning and communications point of view so it's available in multiple formats. We do, or rather we don't have a digital by default mentality in the same way that some service providers do, in that we assume that will be the dominant way. We try and do a bit of everything, so that when looking at that point through the prism of campaigning, we do quite old school things in terms of we go around all the major cities in Scotland and we book time on the high streets to get folk to physically sign up, because we're a housing and homelessness charity, and when you don't have a home, you can be reasonably sure that you probably don't have access to some of those basic amenities. And we also try and mirror all that we do on a digital capacity as well, on a digital format, to make it, going back to that point about trying to cast the net as wide as it can be, with regards to some of the technical things which are probably more relevant to you.
Just to say, we design everything we do with a mobile-first approach, so to make sure that things are they load fast on web connections. We've upgraded servers and so on to make sure that there aren't any bottlenecks over there. But the other thing, I heard a statistic the other day which was incredible, is that over half of Glasgow's population do not have internet at home. So that's we spend time with people who have internet all the time, and we walk around with smartphones and so on, but over half of Glasgow's population do not have internet at home. Yes, they access it at work or in libraries, and one of the things we've done just recently is to put computers into our hubs. So if someone doesn't have internet, they can come into one of our hubs in any of Scotland's biggest cities and access the internet and fill in benefit applications and so on online, because the UK government is now assuming that everyone has internet, and there's a massive divide, and there's a massive shortage of internet access. So yeah, we're aware. Cool.
One more question.
One more question.
So, given that this is a digital weekend, what proportion of your clientele are excluded by, let's say, mobile apps?
Yeah. It's not a data point that we're tracking with people phoning the helpline and so on, and people coming into our services. So the honest answer is I don't know. So we have to then divert to what Scotland's population what is digitally excluded, because if you saw the advice visits that we get a year, that's just over 1 in 10 people in Scotland. So it's a massive amount of people are visiting our advice pages, so it's hugely important that that they can access this information. So when we are looking at creating products and services this weekend, we need to make sure that we understand that not everyone will be able to access it, and what is the fallback for those guys to be able to access it. Cool.
Okay. Thank you, Conrad. Okay, what we're going to do is we're not going to go to the next speaker. What we're going to do instead, before, we're going to do some speed networking, which is a horrendous prospect. But the good side, the upside is you get to have another drink, you get to stand up, just get some fresh air if you need to. But the way speed networking works is that you spend 1 minute. Has anyone done speed networking before? Raise your hand. Okay, so you know the drill. So I'll get my stopwatch out, and you are going to spend 1 minute with a person who you didn't come with and you don't know already. And then you need to switch to a different person. I'll be watching out, and then you continue the process until I say stop. So go and grab a drink, and I'll give you a shout in a few minutes. Where's Cyril? Cyril. Okay, don't disappear, because we're going to start soon. Quick, grab a drink while you can. The bucket is over here. I hope we've got plenty of booze left and other soft drinks on ice. We'll wait for a few to come back from the restroom. Have a comfort break. James, are you participating? Timothy, are you participating? Okay, let me just get my stopwatch out. So you've got 1 minute to grab one person. I'm going to start the stopwatch, and you're going to talk with that person. Okay, so ready,
steady, go!
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can you hear that up there? 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, kind of, yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah.
Do you guys know each other?
1, 2, 3.
Do you guys know each other? You can't talk to anyone you know already. Okay, that's it's about 30 seconds. Okay, guys, come on in, come on. Grab a person that you don't know, or you didn't come with. You've got 20 seconds to talk to that person, then you're going to rotate. Another 20 seconds. Now, no double dating.
1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, you got another 10
4, 5,
seconds.
6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's it now. Find another person you don't know. Come on, guys. Rotate, rotate, rotate. No misbehaving. I'm watching out. You guys. Come on. Megan, get stuck in. Go and find someone else. Okay. Excuse me. Excuse me. Hi. What's your name? Ruth, come over here. Speak to this guy. He's really nice. All right, you got another 30 seconds. Gary and Conrad, I'm watching you. Having a good conversation over there. Another 15 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rotate! Come on now. A different person. Or you're Gary, different person. Conrad, you're a cheater. You guys can talk afterwards. Okay, Adam, switch. Good man, good man. No cheating. There will be no cheating in this room. Not on my watch. Okay, you've got another 30 seconds. Okay, guys. You doing good? Okay, we're going to do one more, okay? One more. I'm going to give you another 15 seconds. A little bit longer this time. Okay, another 30 seconds. Okay, that's 20 seconds. Okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, guys, take a seat. That's it now. We're done with speed networking. You have been initiated. No more speed networking virgins in the room. Take your seat. Quiet, please. Quiet. Come on, people. The networking session has officially ended. Gary, Conrad, take your seats. Huh? Come on, chop chop. Okay, come on, guys. We've got a schedule to keep to. So our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen. Guys, shift. More volume. More volume. Guys, take a seat.
is he? Speak up.
Okay. Right. Is this thing working? Yes, it is. Right. So. Okay. So, how's that? A little bit more volume. That's perfect.
1, 2. Yeah.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2,
2,
3, 1, 2, 3.
3, 4, 5.
Okay. So Cyril is going to talk about the Glasgow Smart City Initiative, and I have to say I was completely shocked by that statistic that 50% of people who live in Glasgow do not have a home internet connection. Really? That says, honestly, that's, huh?
Good to
I find out that myself. I do, but is it really genuine? I mean, I'd love to cross-reference that.
That's a fact, man. It's a fact.
That's unbelievable. I mean, in this day and age.
You put it in black and white in a piece of stone.
Okay, well, there you
It's
go.
a huge challenge for Glasgow, you know, the
So I'll hand
inclusion.
over to Cyril, because he's been working on a Smart City Glasgow initiative, and he's got so many great insights. Over to you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, everyone. It's great to be here tonight. And thanks, Shelter, for allowing us the opportunity to have a hackathon. So my name is Cyril Dyer. I'm the CEO of a company called IDE International. We do a whole lot of smart city and smart enterprise transformation programs. We work a lot with data. We use data to make change and understand people's behaviours so that we can actually create a better quality of life and a better place for people to live. One of the major programs that I've worked on over the last 3 years is the Glasgow Future Cities programme. It was a £24 million programme. It had 3 major parts to it, in which I looked after what they called the open data part. Open data is, you know, we talk about security. There's huge issues around security. There's private data, there's personal data, there's privacy issues, there's security issues. But the thing that we were actually working with was open data. How did we make data open? And then how can we make use of it and allow people to access it, to apply it to the real problems that we've got today? That was a true challenge for us. And the whole purpose of our program was to demonstrate the art of the possible. So what I'd like to do in the next 10 minutes is to give you some insights to some of the stories that we've been through in that program. I think if there is 3 pieces of things that I took out of that 2.5-year program was innovation, innovation, innovation. There was prevention and intervention. If we can innovate, we can prevent, and we can make intervention. That was a major part of the program, whether it be in the communities, whether it be actually in the council service itself, in terms of optimising the service. But altogether, it was let's innovate, let's prevent, and let's make the right interventions. What I'd like to do, one of the things that was always a challenge for us is how do we get people to share data? Sharing data is probably the most difficult thing that I had to deal with during my whole time in Glasgow. Whether it be public data, whether it be private data, whether it be social data, trying to get people to share to allow us to connect and then provide a better service, huge problem. What I've got is a short video here. I'd just like to play to give you let's try and get let's do escape here. And that's the one. Let's play this one. I've got some volume. Need some volume here. Technology, digital. So the real challenge for any city is the ability to share data. We've got sharing agreements in place between police, between fire, ambulance service. It's It's a real challenge for everyone. Being able to open data and make it more transparent was part of the process that we went through probably for the first year. It's just to make people work with them and to be able to share that data. Once we were able to get people to share data, then we could actually get down to the real business of how do we apply that and make a difference to the way in which we serve citizens.
It was plugged out.
So we're just going to dance up and down. Here we go. 1, 2. Okay, stand up, sit down. So data protection is always we try to the real value is when we can mix the data, and so having the ability and the technology to separate those two things at the point of need is the way we were doing that. So anonymizing the data was a really important part of the process. And once we discover the data, then we can anonymize it, and then we can make use of it. That was the way to do that. We're good to go, and here we go.
How well do you know your city? There's more to Glasgow than meets the eye. An invisible layer created by everyone living and working in the city. We all create a unique data trail as we go about our daily life. This non-personal data is the ultimate knowledge, our knowledge. By making it accessible, we can empower everyone to change our city for the better. From cyclists who need connected routes as they journey through the city, to our community seeking smarter ways to light our streets, and residents looking to keep energy bills down. By gathering data from companies, institutions and individuals to our open Glasgow platform, we can simplify this collective knowledge and make it usable. It will allow people from all walks of life to inform, support and inspire life-changing improvements to city life. Imagine, knowledge gathered from our cyclists can determine where to build new cycle paths that are safer, convenient and more enjoyable. With the help of advanced technology, Glasgow's new operations centre brings together smart lighting, pollution monitoring and improved traffic management to make our city safer and smarter. New tools can help us understand our own energy use, allowing us to make better choices to suit our homes. This could be the most adventurous development Glasgow has ever experienced, but it can't happen without you. This is your data, your knowledge, your future city. It's already happening, so start exploring.
This is Future City Glasgow. It was been able to collect the data from all the various, if you like, sources, acquire it as we need it, and then apply it to the real problem spaces we had. Homelessness was one of those areas we looked at. We used community safety as another big area. There was health. We had 4 hackathons.
Sorry.
Wow. Wow.
Sorry, I was playing good. I didn't play earlier, but it's okay.
Okay, go. So we had 4 hackathons that we got everyone together in the room as we got here, and we set them some challenges. And again, we were looking for the innovation. We were looking for, how we do prevention and how we do intervention. So if it was health, if it was safety, that we had the specialists there to find that new way, that something different that made a difference to people's lives. That's what the challenge was for us. Just to help you on the next 2 days, you'll find that if you want to get some resources, there's probably about 2,500 data resources that you can go to on data.glasgow.gov.uk. There's 450 data sets there. Please feel free to use them. There's a whole host on homelessness. There's ones in deprivation. There's housing stock. Please feel free to use it. If you can make use of it in terms of downloading it or whatever you want to do with it. The key thing I would keep in mind is that it's not just the data itself, it's how you use it on a day-to-day basis. It's how can you actually make it useful for someone else. We started looking at the idea of predictive in Glasgow, and we can look back over the last 10 years. We can look at health cases, we can look at safety, we can look at mental health, we can look at a whole host of different things. The real challenge for us was taking that and then operationalising the prediction models that we have. It's all very well in saying that we can predict a certain outcome, but until we make people make use of it, they are actually used. The insight that it creates, it's a very, very difficult thing for people to grasp. One of the things that we were using, you take something like Amazon. I think it's Jeff Bezos now. I don't know, he was the third richest man in the world now. He's based a whole business on predictive algorithm, the recommendation engine that Amazon uses. If you think about what that does, it watches your behaviour, it simply picks up on the pattern, and what it does is it plays back to you what you expect, what you want to buy next. 30% of all his sales comes from that recommendation engine. His wealth comes from that recommendation engine. If you could only apply it to solve some of the problems that we've got in homelessness, think of what the difference it could make. That's the technology that we've got available to us today. It's how we apply it to the problem space. Sometimes I get asked the question of prediction. It's how credible is it? And it is a really challenging question to ask. We can predict certain outcomes. We can predict individuals who might be at risk. In homelessness, the case is, who are the people at risk? So that we can prevent and make interventions. If we get 80% probabilities, that's a good outcome. That's better than what you're doing today. If we can simply use the algorithm that tells us that's the person at risk, this is the area they live in, or even to the point where here's the postcode that they live in. So it's although that might not be a complete, accurate 100%, if I get 80%, it's good. If I can get 60%, it's still good, because it's better than what we've got today. And providing that insight is so valuable to the service providers and for planning purposes going forward. So it's not all about 100%, but we can get 60 to 80%, and it does make a big difference. This was a piece of work we did in Glasgow. It was looking at homelessness. We were producing predictive models to see if we could determine the kind of individual. We kept away from the personal data, because it's all about, what we're really looking for is the event. Someone who becomes homeless or gets into that category. What are the conditions associated with that event? And if we can get the conditions, then it makes it much easier for identifying groups of people. And that means that we can then start to predict where the risk is and who's most at risk. So again, we use a number of technologies. We will use, mapping systems are great for us. We can point out in various wards, for example, in Glasgow, where the high risk was, we use deprivation, we use housing stock, we do a whole host of different data. Big data is very useful to us, because it means that we don't have to go to individuals, but we can actually come out and get context and drive it into the small data. All we're trying to do is to narrow the failure rate and the probability of identifying those people at risk. There is one part of the hackathon I think is extremely important to look at over the next 2 days, is when you're thinking about the product. If you think about, if you can help 1 or 2 groups in a ward, it may be 100 people. If that one small innovation that you create, if you can scale it to a city, think of the improvement to people's lives you can make. If we can take that one product and then scale it across 10 cities, the economy of scale is huge. The savings we make are huge, But more importantly, the quality of life on that one innovation makes a difference to everyone. So economy of scale is actually a very, very important part when we start to look at what the product does. So in the business models that you might look at, I can encourage you, it's not just the innovation, it's not just the prevention or the intervention, it's also about how can we scale this? How do we take it out? How do we make it available to others? Because once you get to the scale, you're making a huge difference. If I take Amazon again, you know, they started in a warehouse somewhere in the US, and now they're a global, and it's the same algorithms they use everywhere. It's the same small innovation they make. If we can make that same change to people's lives from that one innovation, you make a big difference in the world. So, if there was 3 things I would take away from, think about during the hackathon, it's innovation, prevention, intervention. That's what I would score if I was a judge on any product. And can you scale it? Can you take it to the next level? Can we make this something that doesn't just apply to 1 or 2 people, but we can make it apply to 10 cities or 100 cities? Think of the difference you could make. If you want to use data, glasgow.gov.uk, it's all there for you, it's online. There's 400 odd data sets. Please feel free to ask me any questions about it or any other data that you might want access to. I've got a list of hundreds of data sets that you could get close to. So have a great time this weekend, and thank you.
I think we'll do the Q&A at the end. Guys, do you want to take another break? Big break? Yeah. Speed networking or no? Who's in favour? I like it. I won't do it again. All right, we'll take a 5-minute break.
It's the same.
You can hear me?
Well, I will let you know how code she's fine. She had every night.
Okay guys, we're going to get started again. By the way, don't forget to tweet, don't forget to Snapchat, don't forget to Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. The hashtag, don't forget, is ShelterScottPF. Or if you're here for the IoT meetup, it's IOT EDI, the Edinburgh meetup. So, we have another speaker for you, lucky people. Now, Simon from Arkiva is not here in the room. I think he is elsewhere. So what we're going to do is click on this one here, or that one? This one? Now, Simon works for a company called Arkiva, and they've been a very integral part in terms of this amazing smart social housing, smart building initiative over in Glasgow. Can you hear me, Simon?
Yes, I believe you.
Fantastic. Okay, over to you.
I'll try and share my screen.
Yeah, see if you can share your deck. We've got good audio. Yeah, we can see your slides. Okay. And you're not going to do a full screen preview, right? Because we had some issues
yeah,
with
we had
Skype.
some issues earlier. Skype was
Okay, so that's the best you can do. But if you guys want the slides, just let me know and I can send them to you after the talk. Okay, over to you, Simon. Thank you.
Perfect. Hi, good evening. So, just want to start, first of all, my name is Simon Sherry-Taylor. I work for Arkiva. I'm an engineer by profession. I've worked primarily in broadcast, RF, communications, either IP, the lot. Just a brief overview of who Arkiva is. It's primarily a communications and infrastructure company. Provides media services, and it's behind most of the broadcast services for all terrestrial TV, radio, provides satellite uplinks and downlinks, playout services, Wi-Fi, and we're currently also installing networks for smart metering in the north of England and the London region. So yeah, currently we're pretty heavily involved in deploying 2 networks for machine-type communications. And on the left-hand side of the slide deck shows the coverage that will be provided for the smart meter network, and that is electricity and gas. So we're the communication service provider for the DCC. And in the south, in London and the Thames Valley area, we're doing that for smart water. Together with that, we're also deploying the Sigfox network across the UK. And that's primarily a dedicated network for the Internet of Things. We're currently live in 11 cities, which takes us around 30% of the population. 11 of the biggest cities. Initially it was 10 cities, and Cambridge was also included. The plan is, the commitment is to have nationwide coverage. So, has always been devices connected online, and the requirements have been either large amounts of data, some of them small amounts of data. But the more we see the Internet of Things growing, the more we see that most of these devices do not require very large bandwidth. Sometimes they're just sending bursts of information, not continuously. So it's just making sure that we have a network, or there is the capability to connect these devices and ensure that we can act upon the information provided by these devices. And making sure that we are capable of having the necessary infrastructure for thousands of objects, and the growth looking into the future looks like it's going to be exponential in terms of the devices connected in some way, shape or form, and also being able to make decisions based on those devices, the information coming through from those devices, and having a process in place to act upon this information. There are a number of wireless technologies available, and they all address different needs. On the left-hand side, a simple graph showing most of the wireless networks, which we are probably all familiar with. And on the top left, these are primarily all the Wi-Fi technologies, and they all address different bandwidth requirements. The bottom left, we're looking at the Bluetooth, RFID, and NFC. So range and bandwidth, it depends on the requirement. And then we've got the mobile network operators providing the 2G, 3G, 4G, and in the next few years we'll have the 5G networks. Most of these might be suitable for the Internet of Things, for the amount of objects we're having through, but they will not provide an efficient use of the bandwidth and the data rates available. The Wi-Fi networks are suitable if you have to rely on the end user making sure having a broadband router at home of some sort, connected always, all the time. But again, if a device just needs to send some burst of information, it not might be suitable. I mean, it's good for when my wife is uploading our entire life on Facebook while I'm doing a Skype call and downloading some movies, but probably it's not efficient use of the bandwidth for devices. And similarly, with Bluetooth and Zigbee technology, you're always having to rely most of the time during installation on someone having to pair the device, putting some wireless keys or passwords. The services provided by over the mobile network operators have been used for machine-type communications, and they have been, in some instances, reliable, in some instances, not so much. There's the problem sometimes with having blanket coverage across a whole country, and to be fair, that will be also a problem with low-power wide area networks. And that's probably where these type of networks are becoming more important these days with the Internet of Things and with the growth of objects coming online. There is a direct correlation between the amount of bitrate bandwidth you're going to use and the range you're going to achieve. Ideally, you'll have a network in place that can provide very long range so that you don't need to install as much base stations to pick up the information, but also have the right bandwidth requirements. So by reducing the bit rate of the transmission rate, you're increasing the range capability of the device being able to communicate. It's all about hitting the sweet spot, because you can always increase the data rate and the range, but then you would require a much larger battery to power up the device. And what we're after is something that you can install and pretty much almost forget about it for a number of years. It can work autonomously without having power source, with just one battery, and potentially just once the battery dries out, just replace it, making it cheap enough to take off the object and replace. And that's where we've got a number of technologies coming through, and I'm going to speak here about the wide area network technologies, but also coming up is the LTE and IOT, which will be shortly market. I don't know if you can see the information in the slide, but just try to do a comparison between, the primary players within the IoT and the wide area networks, Sigfox, LoRa, and GenU, and there's also another one, Enwave, which is very similar to Sigfox. And we're also going to see the new release of LTE and the narrowband IoT. These have been included in the release 13 of the spec, and I think shortly in the next few months we'll start seeing commercial deployment of these technologies. Arqiva is currently deploying the Sigfox network across the UK. And
Simon, can you hear me? This is Simon.
Yeah,
We've lost your deck. You might have to reload it.
Okay, hold on a second.
So it's a good comparison of the low power wide area network market landscape. You've got, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you see my screen?
You sound a little bit like a Dalek underwater at the moment. Now we're getting the spinning circle of death. Skype is famous for packet loss. It just drives me crazy. I think we need better bandwidth. I hope you guys weren't responsible for the Wi-Fi in this building. Probably BT.
Sure, hopefully not, but...
Do you want to quit and then reboot the call?
Yeah, I can do that, actually.
Have a go at that. Internet connection connection problem. There's a problem with your internet connection between you two. Hold on while we try to get the call back. Isn't this so ironic? You know, Arqiva, I believe, are one of the largest commercial providers of telecommunication systems, including Wi-Fi and broadband. Another go. He probably hit his data allowance cap, because it looks like he's at home on his home Wi-Fi. Oops.
Hi.
Hey!
Hi.
We thought maybe you reached your BT home allowance or something, and you lost your connection. Okay, so do you want to have another go, because we can't see the desktop?
I'm going to try.
Share desktop. And the other thing we could do as a contingency is load the deck on the laptop, and I can scroll through manually while Simon talks.
Probably that would be the best.
Should we have a go doing that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can load up your deck.
The issue is his deck a PowerPoint?
Huh?
Is his deck a PowerPoint?
I think it's just a keynote.
We don't have.
I do. I've got a keynote
On your laptop?
Hello?
We're just finding a laptop to put your presentation on. Simon.
Okay.
We can hear you.
That's good. That's good.
It will just be one moment. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
I don't know why you cannot see me, but maybe it's a good thing.
We can see you again.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I cannot see you guys though, but anyway.
There's not a technical issue here. But,
do you want to just try bringing up your slides again?
Yeah.
I'll try again, yes.
And not full screen.
Yeah. Can you see that by any chance?
You've just frozen.
Oh dear.
We can see you again. Hello. But it's not showing the slides.
Right, you just need to plug his slides.
It should be sharing at the moment.
I've got them on here. I've got them. You just need. All you need is just plug it in.
if you're connected on Hangouts, you could try that. It seems to be much better.
So we're just setting up a second laptop with your slides on it.
Okay.
So what we're going to do...
So we're going to lose your...
That's fine. All we need is audio. All we need is audio.
Probably that's a good thing.
So...
Can you hear us still?
I can, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, perfectly fine.
I mean, we weren't sure for a second there. We're just finding the slides.
Find the deck. There it is, got it.
I think we have them. One moment. Yeah, that looks like they're loading up.
That's presumably the last slide. Or was it?
Which slide would you like up, Simon?
No, it's this one here.
I was on slide 6.
The right level of security. Oh, wait.
No, just the one before that.
Comparisons?
It was
Yes.
that one.
Yeah.
That was the one.
Good. Do you want me to let you know?
No, I'll connect the Bluetooth. Okay, we're good to go.
I think he wants comparisons up.
So you have comparisons up just now.
Okay.
I'll pass you back over to Simon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just let me know and I'll...
Oh,
you want to do that, do you?
Do you want to do it, or I can stay up here?
So, saying the...
I'm good.
Okay. Yeah. The comparison between the technologies which are providing these wide area networks. Wide area networks actually have been around for a number of years. It's nothing new. But what these companies have been doing now is optimizing it for the Internet of Things. And we say that they all fairly operate in similar frequencies and under similar concepts. However, they differ in the type of modulation they use and in the way they operate. And even LTE-M and narrowband IoT, the specification was primarily written to address the need for the Internet of Things and additional objects becoming online, because using the traditional GSM modem would have been very inefficient in terms of battery power, and also the amount of bandwidth it would use wouldn't justify using the traditional GSM modems. So Sigfox and LoRa both operate in the unlicensed spectrum in the ISM band, and they all operate in the UK and around Europe. It's 868 megahertz. And Genu operates in the 2.4 gig, 2.4 gigs. There's the pros and cons. Having a lower frequency, you get a better range. The Genu technical spec and the physical layer is very good. However, it is very power hungry compared, for example, to Sigfox and LoRa. Sigfox operates on a very ultra-narrow band of frequency when it transmits a signal. LoRa operates much more on a spread spectrum. Narrowband IoT will be fairly similar to Sigfox in terms of it's utilizing a very narrow band of frequency once it transmits. So you get a very good range similar to Sigfox. And also operating in a very narrow band of frequency, the noise floor of the interference that might happen from other users, the receiver will be able to detect it better, hence why you get better sensitivity. The other technologies utilize processing gain and additional coding to limit the possible effects of interference. However, the trade-off is how much power you're going to use on the device and how much your battery will last. Pretty much all of the technologies operate both uplink and downlink two-way communications. The Sigfox one is device triggered, and there's a limitation on the number of downlink messages you can send on the device compared to other technologies. But then it makes better use of the battery power because of that. So in theory, you can have a device which can operate for close to 10 years or more if you can be pretty efficient in the terms of how it uses battery. LTE and the narrowband IoT, because they use licensed spectrum, they're not prone too much to interference, because the frequency blocks they operate in will be specifically assigned to those operators, so they don't need to worry about other users in the band. Whereas Sigfox, LoRa, N-Wave, and Genu all have to have something in place to make sure that they limit the effects of interference, and all have their own methods of doing it. And I'm going to be a bit biased towards Sigfox because Arkiva is deploying the Sigfox network, and I've seen it working, and I've seen the way they do the diversity for message success rate, and it is fairly good, even in noisy environments and in very built-up areas in cities, where you get very good success rates of messages. LoRa is also fairly robust because it adds additional coding inside the message itself. The downside to that, though, is that you lose some range. So all of these technologies have their merits. It depends on probably what you need to use your device for, how much data you need to send. Are you going to be limited with operating within the ISM band? Would you go for LTE-M? I believe, personally, in most cases, some devices will only transmit a few times a day, and operating within the ISM band, which is, it is license free, but it is regulated. You cannot transmit as much as you want. There is a limit on how much you can transmit every hour. It's still sufficient for most devices, because in some cases it could be just you're gonna notify an application if something goes wrong, and sometimes something will not go wrong for a number of days. So it will be very sufficient to work with, more than acceptable to work within those limitations. If you could go back to the next slide, please.
Do you want me to go forward or back?
So all of these technologies deploy some forms, some levels of security. Some of them are fairly different from each other. So Sigfox has an identification key built in during the manufacturing process in the transceiver, which makes it unique on the network. If another device tries to replay the message or transmit using the same ID, the backend system will realize that there's something wrong going on, basically, and it will block those devices. It's encrypted messages, so it's fairly difficult to reuse or replay the same messages. And similarly, also LoRa and Ingenu use similar methods, also have similar methods in place, apart also including the AES encryption. Once it reaches the after going through the RF side, on the IP side, again, all of them offer some level of security. VPN tunnels to transmit the data from the base station network over to the backend servers. So the more you add encryption and processing to it, of course, the trade-off is that you have to have more processing power on the device itself. So again, similarly, it is a trade-off. How you can best achieve the level of encryption required, security, versus the cost of developing a device and also battery consumption. Additionally, I mean, I can talk about Sigfox. The way it operates is it offers diversity in its message transmission. So you can have a source of interference close to, for example, one base station. But the way the network is designed is that a device has to talk to more than one base station. So the level of interference occurring or someone spoofing in on the network in a different location is very limited to be able to do that network-wide. So that in itself also offers a level of encryption or interference resilience. Probably one of the downsides within Sigfox is that the amount of data you can transmit in one transmission is 12 bytes. It might not sound a lot, but if you're going to apply some encryption within the application level of the hardware itself, then you're going to use up some of that payload, which is usually reserved for your own application. LoRa and the other technologies support much higher rates of transmission. Sigfox is 12 bytes, which might not sound a lot, as I said, but sometimes you're only sending state information. You're going to only use a few bits. So it depends on the application you're going to use. 12 bytes might not sound a lot, but you can stuff in quite a lot of information in 12 bytes of data. If you can go on the next slide, please. So talking again about Sigfox, it uses a very narrow band. It's only 100 Hertz when it transmits a signal. And because the signal-to-noise ratio is proportional to the bandwidth you're going to use, that makes it available to work within other users of the spectrum also, and the base station can distinguish between a Sigfox signal and another signal, even if they're transmitting at the same time. The resilience, apart from the hardware itself, is also designed in the network, in that whenever a message is transmitted, there is frequency hopping within the band, and it's also transmitted multiple times. And as I said, each device can talk to multiple base stations, so you build a lot of diversity and robustness in the transmission by doing so. If you just transmit, if you make a device just transmit in that band using that technology just once without that diversity, you get, on a good coverage zone, you get probably 60% probability that your device will communicate to the base station. By increasing the frequency rate, the message transmission time, and the amount of times it transmits, the probability of that being received by the base station goes up in the high 99.9%. One of the other differences between Sigfox and, for example, LoRa and Ingenu is that Sigfox is a fully managed network. Within the UK, Arqiva is deploying the network and managing the network, and the plan is to go nationwide. So far, the other technologies have been bespoke to specific areas, either within a specific area of a city or in a campus environment, and it's a bit fragmented. So I could, for example, deploy a LoRa network in Salisbury, where I live, but someone else in another part of the country will deploy the LoRa network. Other users can start using my gateway, but if I decide to switch it off, then there will be an issue for other users. So having a fully managed network makes it much better, in my opinion, to be honest. There are plans in other countries at the moment for LoRa to be deployed by either mobile network operators as a managed service also. We haven't seen that in the UK yet. And Sigfox is also available, the transceivers are also available by multiple vendors. They made the IP open to anyone who would like to implement it on their silicon chips. So there's a wide range of options where you can buy your transceivers from. And there's a number of options. For example, a company, Telecom Design, produce their system on chip, including the transceiver. So within one module only, you can have your processor, GPIOs, and various other interfaces to communicate with the external world, including the transceiver. So that makes it very cost effective in building your own hardware. But then there are others like Atmel, Axum, who are producing the transceivers, and just having the transceiver on its own, even in not large quantities, you can buy the chips for around $5 at this stage. So the driving the costs down. LoRa, similar prices also, but it's still one manufacturer, Semtech, who are producing the chipset itself. And for all these technologies, to be honest, they're all trying to make it simple for anyone to pick up the hardware and provision it on the system and make it work. The idea is to have a device that you can install, take it anywhere and install without having the end user having to worry about how to pair it to something, how to connect it to a network. If they can just, for example, receive the hardware and put in the battery, and you don't need to worry about infrastructure within the environment. I don't need to worry if there is Wi-Fi available or the Wi-Fi network is on. The idea is to have it as easy as possible to install. So that was a very quick overview of the technologies. If you can go back, go on to slide 9 if possible.
Sorry.
Over the last year or so,
run slide 9, whatever.
Evangelizing the low power wide area networks and trying to build use cases in various environments. And the ones we're seeing most traction is the utility sectors and the smart city sectors. And that includes buildings and asset management. We've got a few trials going on, and probably at the stage of early stages. But for example, in the utility sector, we're partnering with a company which monitors photovoltaic cells to manage, effectively help them in their maintenance program, to ensure that if there's an issue with particular cells, how much power is generating through them. And what they're saying is that they can proactively see when there are issues. And these are both in big solar farms, but also within domestic use, where they propose to sell like an insurance program and a maintenance program. Within the building sectors and the smart city sector, what we're seeing is that a lot of councils are getting interested in checking. Primarily, the main inquiries and the main trials we're seeing is environmental monitoring, deploying NO2 sensors, CO2, and also temperature and humidity. And they can report on that and see the environmental conditions within their areas. And asset management is also something that we're looking to use low power wide area networks. Again, councils not knowing where their assets are, having a GPS within the device itself and reporting this position makes them use their resources more efficiently, or if they get stolen. And another trial that is due to start within council in England is refuse collection, checking if your wheel bin is full, and if it's not, does it need to be collected or not. If you can go on to the next slide, if possible. Within the building sector, a few months ago, together with our partners, we started a trial in Greenock near Glasgow. And this is a social housing
Simon, time out, just for a sec. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, what we need to drag out the hackathon contestants.
Okay.
And then we can continue the remainder of the talk and do the Q&A. So
Okay.
guys, if you're participating in the hackathon, follow Alan to the room next door. Adam, we're losing you unfortunately for the Q&A. You're going with the hackathon contestants. And whoever's remaining within the IOT meetup and is interested in learning more about low power wide area network technologies, stick around. Sorry for everyone on the live stream. We're just we're going to crack on in a moment. Okay. Simon, go ahead.
So I was saying, a few months ago, we started a trial with a number of partners with a housing association, where a number of devices have been installed within dwellings, and they're primarily used to monitor environment conditions, so it's temperature, humidity, but also noise. And the main idea behind that is for this housing association to be able to provide better maintenance across their dwellings, and also monitor the status of the environment that people are living in. In the ideal world, because of the savings they'll get with preventive maintenance, they could use the money they save in better use within their housing environments. And it is still early days, but the feedback we're getting is that it is actually working as they expected, and they're getting the benefits they're seeing. And the good thing about it is that they have been sort of the guinea pigs of trying out this technology, but now we're getting inquiries from other councils around and other housing associations around the country to try similar systems. So there's potentially another 3 which we're going to go ahead in the next few weeks. So again, primarily for preventive maintenance, but even for safety, ensuring, for example, that the smoke detector is still active. And that's one of the things that we're going to try and use and monitor. So there's a lot of interest. It's one of those things at the moment that you get the early adopters and the others who will follow suit later, and just trying to gather the interest and trying to show what the benefits would be of deploying such technology. However, of course, with all like other issues within the data world, there's a privacy concerns, and if you can go on to the next slide if possible. It's always going to be an issue, and it's how we manage it and how we ensure that the security and the privacy of individuals are always maintained. If you take a single device on its own and see its data, it's probably very difficult to identify or try and build a pattern. But once you have a large number of devices within, for example, one house, and with that you can start obtaining some information which for some people might not be comfortable with. You can start determining what time they wake up, what time they're at home, what they're doing, and we need to ensure that if we're going to do that, do we need to identify the individual? Is it possible for that type of information to be blanked out so that people don't know who the individual is? However, for example, like the example I mentioned earlier, the housing association, the information they get from the hardware and the devices installed within each dwelling, then yes, they will actually know who the individual is. And how do we get those people comfortable and showing the benefits? It's always going to be tricky. And how do we address their concerns? Probably myself, I would personally probably be uncomfortable if just a random person tells me, oh, we're going to install this device. But by trying to ensure and explain why it's being used and for what purposes, we try and get people on board and being more comfortable with it. Within the chain, from the hardware down to who's seeing the data, there's probably a number of organizations who will be involved, and each organization has to ensure that they're properly secured, they're protecting the data of the individual, and only knowing who the individual is at the right places only. It's no use, for example, the wireless network being ultra secure, but then you can hack into the backend application, or some part of the chain being broken, and then all that information comes through. Because at the end of the day, the intentions are good. It's making sure that we keep everything secure, and ensuring that the customers, the individuals who these devices are installed for, and to make their life easier, they're comfortable with it. And yeah, basically we need to earn the trust of the public in using these devices and these applications, because ultimately the main aim is to enable better living, having better conditions, hopefully, and using technology for that effect. And I think that brings me to the end.
Okay, Simon, excellent, thank you. Unfortunately, we lost quite a few of our attendees to the hackathon. But that's okay, because we do have people who've joined the live stream on Periscope and via the Product Forge live stream. And of course, in addition, the talks will be available in perpetuity, potentially on YouTube. So, I mean, this is, granted, a very sort of specialist area. It is an area that I happen to be very interested in, because without low power wide area networks, the internet isn't really possible. You've got to have things connected.
Yeah.
And until now, because things like fiber optic and 3G, 4G, they're just too power hungry to serve sensors that are embedded in remote locations. Just not workable, and that's what I think has been hampering the deployment of the Internet of Things and the industrial IoT. So that's why low power wide area networks for the first time can ping data back and forth from things, embedded sensors in all kinds of different things, and that's what's going to make a difference. So until these low power wide area networks are deployed, the Internet of Things is not really going to go anywhere fast. So I've got a question for you, Simon. Why did you choose Sigfox over LoRa or Nginx or, well, I suppose narrowband IoT is not really deployed yet, so out of LoRa and Sigfox. Why did you go for Sigfox?
So that was probably now coming up to 3 years ago when Arqiva decided to look into deploying a network for the Internet of Things, and of the technologies available, I think at that time Sigfox and LoRa were primarily the most advanced in terms of its development, its deployment possibilities. When we looked at both and the technology and how it works, we found that Sigfox would provide better coverage due to the data rate and the way it's used. So, for example, within RF is a bit of a black magic, and it depends on the topography of the environment where you're installing, but you can get several miles of communication from one device up to the base station using the technology of Sigfox. So that was a very big plus side, because the amount of base stations you then need to install, for example, in rural areas will be lower than what we had to install, for example, for LoRa. Within built-up environments, of course, you still need to have a much larger population of base stations. However, the sensitivity on the receiver at the base station end, because of the nature of the RF transmission, is slightly higher than LoRa. So again, you get better transmission rates.
So what's the average battery life? If you're putting a sensor in a remote location, it could be structural health monitoring for a pipeline that's in the North Atlantic, I don't know, up in Alaska somewhere. You really don't want to be sending engineers out to replace batteries. Yes. So if you've got a Sigfox network and a LoRa network, we're talking about 20 years between, yes. Or maybe you don't even need a battery at all. You need energy harvesting, solar power.
Yeah.
You've got those kind of they can charge the sensor using movement in some cases. So how do they compare LoRa versus Sigfox?
Fairly similar in terms of battery usage. From what we've seen so far, I see that the way because the way it transmits a signal, Sigfox is slightly more efficient. However, I'm not saying that LoRa is not good in that respect, but because the signal is transmitted over a smaller bandwidth, you need less, for example, additional coding within the signal, so it's just a burst, and then it goes to sleep again. The way it's also designed to receive downlink messages, it's very efficient in terms of its network management and when it sends a downlink message back. So even when a device, for example, requests a downlink message, it goes back to sleep for up to 30 seconds until it wakes up at the right time to listen for a message which is addressed to that particular device. So they're fairly similar. I think it's slightly more efficient on the Sigfox end, but not by much. Then of course it also depends on the size of the battery you're going to use, for example, but also if you're going to have an additional processor. And we've seen these over the last few years some very efficient processors out in the market.
Who's making those processors? They're systems on the chips. What Qualcomm? Who are the market leaders right now?
The most we've seen on devices which are on the network are based on ARM,
which is now SoftBank, of course. We've got a question for you, real quick. I'll hand you over.
Hi, Simon. I just wanted to ask, what kind of pricing model can we expect?
So I think I'm not really
pricing model based on what?
I'm not probably the right person to answer that, but Sigfox offer different pricing models depending on volumes and depending on the number of messages you're going to send. Off the top of my head, if if I remember correctly, there's four bands of message transmissions per day, starting from the very basic, where you send up to 2 a day, to 50 messages, 100, and the maximum of 140 per day. And then it depends on the volumes. But the idea is that it will make it a lot cheap to run. Unfortunately, I don't have the figures off the top of my head, and I'm probably not the best person to ask in terms of pricing. I know that it depends on how much usage you're going to have. But I mentioned also the 140 messages maximum per day. That's due to the regulations of operating within the ISM band, and the number of transmissions you can do per hour hence equates to 140, and it allows also for downlink messages then.
Any other questions? Just a minute. Let's get the mic.
Yeah.
Like I see, I need this audio for the live stream. There you go.
Hi. Sorry, it's kind of just tied into that question, but and maybe you can't give exactly, but can you give any indicative sort of pricing about that upper message cost and how it might compare to maybe SIM contracts you might get at the moment, sort of per month?
I'm afraid I don't know the answer, but what we could do is, if you can hand the details over to Simon, we can get back to you with regards to that. I'm afraid I really don't know the answer to that. I will have to refer to my commercial colleagues regarding that.
It just seems to me like there's a cultural divide between these kind of dynamic startups like Sigfox that have gone the route of raising a ton, and they're going to need it, of VC funding. I think
Yes.
Sigfox closed the largest VC round in French history. What was it, 150 million bucks? I'm not even sure. Like I said, they're going to need that and a lot more in order to deploy this network and remain competitive. And you've got the sort of open source standards. And really, IoT NB is a kind of an effort of the incumbents. The guys who come from a tradition of embedding SIM cards, 3G, 4G, 5G, and they're trying now to get in on the act. Do you think those guys, those sort of the narrowband IoT consortium or consortii, have kind of missed the initiative, are kind of missing out to LoRa and Sigfox and Ingenu and so on? The new kids on the block, as it were.
Yeah, going back to what you said about the VCs raised, and I believe Sigfox are going to a next round also of funding, because they have quite a lot of global ambitions, and in some countries they're deploying the network themselves. In places like the UK, we partnered with them and we're deploying the network in the UK. I think I'm fairly excited, to be honest, with the release of the spec for narrowband IoT and LTE-M, because I think yes, it came a bit too late. I think they were more focused on deploying 4G and getting up and running with the getting some specifications for 5G in place. And what Sigfox and LoRa have done is try to get ahead of the curve in terms of their network deployment. I believe that narrowband IoT and LTE-M would be complementary. They won't necessarily try to kill off Sigfox and LoRa, because their use base will probably be different applications. There are statements from Vodafone and Huawei, for example, who are pushing very hard on narrowband IoT, that they will take over what Sigfox and LoRa are trying to address the market for. But I believe they'll be complementary to each other.
It's just the last thing we need is more standards.
I know.
Standards. It's killing the industry.
I know.
We've got to agree on the best of breed for each individual application and stick with it, because otherwise this Betamax, VHS nightmare is going to continue. Do you have any more questions? I think we're going to wrap things up fairly soon.
Okay. I mean, the other thing I want to add is, even if at least, for example, the radio side has different standards, when you get to receiving the data from those objects, at least if we can have a set of standardized methods to accept that data, process it, and present it to an application, then at least maybe if we have that bit, there is some benefit to that. And for example, Hypercat are one of the consortiums who are trying to achieve that. But yeah, it remains to be
Again,
seen.
BT Hypercat is yet another smart city
Yes.
initiative, yet another standard.
Yeah.
Do we really need that? We'll see, we'll see. Anyhow, very early days. Thank you so much for your talk, really appreciated it. And I think we're going to wrap things up and have a few drinks and a little bit of networking. Thank you very much. Round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thanks, Simon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah, different crowd, different crowd. I think that that was quite heavy, quite sort of niche, shall we say? Which I'm fascinated by low LP1 personally, because I follow it, but I can understand how people would just switch off completely. And
the slides are interesting.
yeah, absolutely. Do you have a card or anything?
No,
Huh?
I continue.
Okay, great. Right, let's have some beers. I'm going to stick around here for sure. I don't think that many of us are going to be going to a bar or a pub because of the hackathon. I know that Alan is kind of obligated to remain in the building for the foreseeable future to remain with the hackathoners. But yeah. So Sergio, what are you working on? You're working on something quite interesting. Grab drinks, guys, by the way, because it's hot. And we've got some sandwiches over here.
So open a window, Simon.
I'll do it, James.
I don't know. This place is like a bunker with all this concrete. You don't have aircon, do you?
We don't. No. If you have 20 grand spare, then we would get.
Of course I do. How do you want it? Cash? Check?
We take gold bonds.
Some gold bars, some gold bullion. Bitcoin?
We do actually take Bitcoin.
Excellent. I need to get one of those Bitcoin wallets.
Well, we got through the AV related thing.
No, it's fine. We're well, it works really, really well. Skype more access. I'm not sure there's two groups. Yeah. And also the context, he was not involved clearly in that social housing project. See, the Arkiva putting all, I talked about it very briefly in terms of the segments where they're applying technology, but I wanted to hear about this social housing smart building project in doing it near Glasgow, where they're embedding smart technology in these buildings. How is that helping? And he knew that's what the topic was.
Yeah, but that's the internet stuff I was trying to check out.
And they wanted to